I interviewed Chris Harris a couple of months ago, and the reason why he left TNA was what you had alluded to, is that all the WWE guys, ex-WWE, were coming over to TNA and getting paid loads, whereas the TNA guys who've been there since the beginning were getting as little as something like $300 a TV taping. As somebody in charge, one of the head honchos, if you want to call someone who people would bend your ear over this kind of thing, who was complaining the loudest and who were the most egregious WWE hires for too much money?
I think Sting was the highest and most absurd number that I heard, because he didn't wrestle that much. He just wrestled on pay-per-views, but every time he showed up, it was $10,000 every time. Now, and they may have signed an actual total money agreement. I think it's like $500,000. Now you can see the bitching. Here's the guy making $50,000 and working every show they got. And here's Sting, because of his background, comes in and he works or not, he's going to still get $500,000, whether he takes a headlock or he just walks to the ring. And I can kind of see that bitching. And Chris Harris was one of them, because he wasn't the only one. AJ Styles was another one. And see, he had a chance to go to WWE before he went to TNA. But he turned it down because they really lowballed him. I mean, hell, he could have probably worked at McDonald's and made more. I think they offered him something like $500 a week, $600 a week or something, to move or to go to Orlando to their training developmental facility. And I don't know why they would want to send him to a developmental facility anyway. He should have been training them. He was that good. Very seldom have I seen a guy, and AJ Styles is, you've heard of idiot savants. That had nothing to do with intelligence, but he just knew and understood wrestling from the get-go. You didn't have to tell him much, because he had a sponge for a brain, and he picked it up. And when you can have a guy that's only, and I probably ran across him, he'd probably been in the business maybe a year and a half, but that was just independent stuff. But his development in the ring was eons past that. I mean, if you looked at him, you said, man, this guy's, he's worked at least 10 years, but he hadn't. He'd only worked like a year and a half. So, but yeah, he was one of the complainers. But see, complaining to me didn't do nothing. Hell, I've heard this shit before. I mean, and I agreed with them. But hey, I had a job, so I had to go do the job. I couldn't take their bitches to management, because they're saying, what the hell? That's their job. And it was their job. So they all had to either get together. And that's the thing about the wrestling business, is because guys really don't stick together. Because, if they go singly, they get fired. If they go as a group, they get fired or moved around. So I feel for him, but I think you talk about the guy who was one of the biggest paid in TNA was Sting. Kurt Angle was another one.
But at least he put the effort in the ring every single week, and he's not like Nash.
And Nash was another one. Kevin didn't do much, and Booker T got a pretty good pop. But at least he would perform in the ring, and he'd do what you ask him to do, and he'd go and bust his ass. But the biggest one that I can say was Sting. That I think for what he did and what he got they didn't match up.